Crash and burn. Kathleen Kennedy story. This woman took Star Wars and she did some very questionable things with Star Wars.
Kathleen Kennedy. If ever there was a name synonymous with the destruction of pop culture franchises, the humiliation of beloved legacy characters, creative mismanagement, missed opportunities, and the unwelcome injection of the message into modern entertainment, it's this one woman. Yeah, other people have arguably committed worse crimes against cinema, but Kennedy did it first and biggest. And now that she's finally, officially, definitively stepped down as president of Lucasfilm, to the relief of literally dozens of Star Wars fans that are still invested, and beginning her extended walk into the wilderness of retirement, it seems like the right time to make what I hope will be my last ever video on this subject. Because if anyone deserves a crash and burn, it's her. Not so much because she nuked her own career and torched her own legacy. We'll get to that in due course, though.
Yes.
Am I the only person that, like, I thought that it was so stupid? Like, if I was going to tier list the characters that are the ones that I like the most in, like, the new Star Wars trilogy, I would go Kylo Ren, Finn, and then maybe some other random extra, and then after that, I'd say Rey.
But because she managed to burn down literally everything around her, leaving a trail of devastated IPs in her wake, while somehow holding on to power as head of one of the biggest studios in the business.
Rey was so
perhaps the greatest example of failing upwards that Hollywood's ever seen. And believe me, it's seen a lot. So grab your bargain bin Rey Skywalker action figure and let's embark on Crash and Burn,
either of them would have been
Kathleen Kennedy story. Kennedy was born in 1953 in Berkeley, California, one of three daughters of Donald Kennedy, a judge, and Dionne Marie, a part-time theater actress. After majoring in telecommunications and film studies at university, she soon found work at a local TV station in San Diego as a camera operator, floor manager, and eventually a production coordinator.
Of course.
It was clear, though, that if she wanted to progress in the business, she'd have to move to LA, which she did in 1978, and soon landed her first job as a production assistant to John Milius, who at the time was overseeing Steven Spielberg's troubled comedy movie 1941.
I mean, the reason why she looks so good for her age is because she never stressed out about making good movies. She never stressed herself out about, oh wow, am I destroying the franchise? She never even think about that.
Basically, her job was to take notes, run errands, and make coffee. Three things that she was spectacularly bad at.
I remember Kathy came into the room with her steno pad and her pencil, and she was horrible at taking notes, and she was terrible, and she didn't really know how to do it very well. But what she did know how to do was interrupt somebody in mid-sentence. We'd be pitching ideas back and forth, and Kathy, who's supposed to be writing these ideas down, suddenly put her pencil down and would say something like, and what if he didn't get the girl, but instead he got the dog?
What?
Right.
Spielberg, though, for whatever reason, took a liking to her and hired her as his personal assistant for Raiders of the Lost Ark. Now, she might have been shit at taking notes, but to her credit, she was organised, diligent, and efficient, able to solve problems and mediate disagreements. She soon rose through the ranks to become an associate producer on Poltergeist, and finally a full-on producer for E.T. in 1982.
Oh, wow.
Not bad for a 29-year-old. The pattern for her career was now set, and she would act as producer for nearly all of Spielberg's movies for the next 30 years. She wasn't what you would call a creative person because she didn't really need to be.
Which, by the way, that's totally fine. Like, a producer is, in some cases, more important than a director. Like, I remember whenever I would try to record things, and, like, we had this other guy, like a friend of mine, and he would basically do the producing of it. And, like, this guy just made everything work better. And when we didn't have him, nothing happened. Like, literally just nothing happened.
Her job was to facilitate other people's creative visions, organize logistics, overcome all the problems and hurdles that cropped up along the way. It might not have been sexy or exciting work. It wasn't the sort of thing the general public ever got to see, but it was important, and it won her a lot of respect in the industry. She was a project manager, basically, and to be fair, she was good at it. Her work on the Indiana Jones movies also brought her into the orbit of two other men who would turn out to be cornerstones of her career, George Lucas and Frank Marshall. In the case of the first man, they became close colleagues.
I do think that it's funny that, once again, it's another woman who basically gets every advantage handed to her by men, that then whenever they finally have an opportunity to make their own content, it's all about female empowerment. And your videos about female empowerment are garbage because you never got empowered because of anything else other than, I don't know, some other bullshit, right? Maybe you're good at your job, maybe not. But I do think that there's anytime that I see an attractive person, like an attractive young female that's in a position that's a very, very high level position, and it's by, like, they've been put in that position by an older guy, like, maybe this is unfair, but I do have a bias there.
Colleagues and friends, and stayed that way for decades. Maybe not so much today, though. And in the case of the latter, they were married by 1987. As you can probably imagine, having close personal relationships with three of the most powerful and respected men in the business did wonders for her career, and by the mid-90s, she was regarded as one of the most influential producers in the industry. She even co-founded Amblin Entertainment with Spielberg and the Kennedy Marshall production company with her husbands. All good stuff, and if she'd continued on this course of producing and overseeing individual movies, she probably would have had a stellar career and retired as the single most successful female producer ever. As it turned out, though, fate had other plans for Kathleen Kennedy.
Too far. Somebody's saying that, like, actually it might not be that, it's the Peter principle, which means that basically the reason why you have people in positions of management that are incompetent is people keep getting promoted past the positions that they're competent in until they reach a position that they're incompetent in which case they do not receive a promotion past that because they're incompetent at their job. There's actually a really good chance that could happen too. That's a great point. You're right.
Remember George Lucas that she'd befriended back in the 1980s? Well, by 2012, he was getting old and burned out after making the Star Wars prequels and Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. Disney were offering to buy up Lucasfilm from him, and he was very much tempted by the offer, but what he really needed was a safe pair of hands to leave the company in. And from his point of view, Kennedy seemed like the perfect choice. He knew her personally, he trusted her, and when it came to experience, there was nobody who could rival her. So, in late 2012, the deal was done. Disney bought over Lucasfilm, and Kathleen Kennedy was installed as president of the company.
Damn. 2012.
A move that few people took issue with at the time. That, however, would soon change. Things started out well, at least. J.J. Abrams, arguably the safest pair of hands in the business at the time, delivered a massive box office hit with The Force Awakens, the first movie in a new Star Wars trilogy.
I feel like there's, like, no chance this would have gone badly. I mean, you brought back Harrison Ford playing fucking, what's his name, Han Solo. You've got this cool new lightsaber. This is the first Star Wars movie in, like, 20 years. Like, there's no way this was going to go bad. Really, like, I mean, I don't see it happening.
It was just a glorified nostalgia trip and a thinly disguised rehash of A New Hope.
But who
cares? Like, Star Wars was back,
universe
baby,
where it was going
and
to fail.
Was bigger than ever. The following year, Rogue One proved that Star Wars could release spin-offs and prequels to the main story that were still financially viable, to potentially kickstart an entire cinematic universe just like the MCU.
I thought Rogue One was good. Honestly, I did. And it's weird that, you know, I don't know why. It seems like a lot of the stories that they told that were, like, not the mainline ones were better. Like, I've heard good things about Mandalorian, and people like Andor a lot. But it's just the main movies were, I think, mediocre.
Unfortunately, the good times weren't to last. See, going from producer on specific film projects where you have very clearly defined tasks, objectives, and responsibilities to head of an entire studio that was centered around one man's creative vision is a pretty big leap that demands a whole new set of skills. Skills that Kathleen Kennedy absolutely didn't have.
Like logistics is very different than, like, artistic vision. It's totally different. And I think that these are equal quality of skills. It's not like one of these things where, like, oh, the people that are the artists are better than the people that are logistics. I don't believe that at all. I think that actually, like, both of these are equal and just as valuable as each other, but you have to have both of them. And you have to have a person that is able to understand both of those that's in the highest level of leadership position.
It was a strong creative vision for where she wanted to take the franchise and how she was going to get it there. She needed to plan and map out release schedules for multiple films with directors and writers that were actually suited to the projects in hand. She needed to keep people on track, monitor progress, and juggle multiple projects at the same time. She needed to be a leader now, not a facilitator.
Yeah, exactly.
And this is where it all started to go wrong. Kennedy had hired up-and-coming director Rian Johnson to write and direct The Last Jedi, the second movie in the sequel trilogy. Unlike JJ though, who was all about nostalgia and fan service, Rian was determined to shake things up and subvert fan expectations, not live up to them.
I thought that was so stupid. Like, every time that somebody tries to subvert fan expectations, I think that subvert is disappoint 9 times out of 10 with a lot of people that are making movies and media now. It's just, oh yeah, we're gonna subvert expectations by not meeting them.
And
just how
boy,
it is.
did he ever. Throwing out JJ's proposed ideas for the sequel, killing off most of his plot threads, and completely going into business for himself. Now, George Lucas probably would have stepped in at this point and told him he was being a fucking idiot, but the lack of a strong overarching plan for the sequels, combined with Kennedy's attitude of, just let them get on with it, ultimately doomed the movie. TLJ turned out to be the most divisive Star Wars film of all time, completely splitting the fan base into warring factions, and bringing in barely half of what Force Awakens had made. Worse,
I think that's probably true. Like, the first movie, people were generally kind of okay with it. But the second one, I feel like everybody was like, they thought it sucked. Like, I remember the choreography whenever they're fighting in like Snoke's room. I saw like a video of like people pretending like they got hit whenever they didn't even get hit.
Introduced identity and gender politics into Star Wars in a way that had never existed before. And believe me, this was intentional. One of Kennedy's goals with Star Wars was to increase female representation on screen, so that not only would the franchise retain the inbuilt male audience, they'd also attract a brand new female audience that had been put off until now. A modern audience, you might say.
If you go back and you watch the midnight releases of like the old Star Wars movies in like the 70s, you're going to see tons of women there. This entire concept is just bullshit to begin with. It's not even true.
Although is in the detail, and no idea can survive bad execution. Suddenly people were hyper-aware of overpowered, overbearing girl boss characters like Rey, Holdo, and Rose Tico, and they didn't like them. Kennedy's decision to take part in the Force's female
Give me a fucking break. Are you kidding me?
Campaign for Nike in 2017, combined with her obvious feminist sensibilities, instantly put her in the firing line. For most detractors of the sequel trilogy, she became the big bad of Star Wars, an unqualified diversity hire promoted to a job she didn't earn, presiding over a franchise she didn't build, and killing everyone's fun by populating it with annoying, unlikable self-insert power fantasies.
Well, it's also that, here's another component, is that the people that are watching, the guys that watch Star Wars, and it is guys, like, I'm sorry, but like, yeah, there are women that watch the old movies, but Star Wars is effectively a medieval story told in space. That's it. Even George Lucas said this. It's not like they're reinventing the wheel here. It's the most classic story you can ever hear. And so really, like, who do you think's buying all the lightsabers? Who do you think's going around fighting with lightsabers in 2003? Me and every other guy in the neighborhood. Were there a bunch of girls doing that? No, it's guys. You have to understand that there are certain types of media that have a male and a female audience by the nature of the way that they are. That's it. It's just, and it's totally normal. Like, it's okay. Like, that's nothing wrong with that.
The next spin-off movie in the Star Wars cinematic universe bombed in spectacular fashion, partly driven by the ongoing backlash against TLJ.
Exactly.
There would be no more spin-off movies after that.
Yeah, exactly.
The great Rian Johnson experiment had failed. The Star Wars cinematic universe was stalled, and now they needed to get back to safer territory for the final movie. J.J. Abrams was coaxed back to tell a story he didn't really want to tell, desperately trying to undo the damage done by TLJ, only to produce an absolute Frankenstein's monster of a film in Rise of Skywalker. Reviews were terrible, fans were disgusted, and the film barely cleared $1 billion at the global box office. A far cry from the success of The Force Awakens. With the movie business in tatters, Kennedy and Lucasfilm retreated to TV, where they scored a surprise hit with The Mandalorian, mostly because it had Jon Favreau at the helm. The success wasn't to last though, and failures like Boba Fett and Obi-Wan Kenobi failed to capitalize on its success.
I thought Obi-Wan Kenobi was popular. I don't remember that at all. Can I go back and redo the films? I don't think they should do that. I think the focus they should have should be on making a new story. Like, I've always thought they should do something inside of the scope of the Old Republic.
Lucasfilm by this point was rapidly descending into chaos.
Darth Vader.
New Star Wars projects were announced to huge fanfare, only to go nowhere and quietly fizzle out without explanation. By now, Kennedy was raiding the cupboards at Lucasfilm in search of anything she could use to prop the company up. Willow, a 1980s fantasy movie, was brought back in a baffling show about a pair of lesbians so disastrously awful that Disney ended up scrubbing it from their servers and memory holing it. To this day, there's no legal way to view it online.
What? It was that bad?
Indiana Jones was defrosted for one last adventure, mostly in the hopes of replacing him with a younger female alternative.
It's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for him.
It didn't work, and despite massively
yeah.
expensive reshoots to try to fix it, the movie flopped at the box office. The biggest humiliation for Kennedy was yet to come, though. The Acolyte, a show that will live in Star Wars infamy as long as Hollywood exists.
This was the end. This show made more content. Like, there's a good chance that Critical Drinker might have made more money making videos about the Acolyte than the Acolyte made. It's pretty impressive.
A pair of strong, diverse female leads, lesbian space witches, weak men getting humiliated. It was all there, and it was all terrible. And in a way, it represents the final form of Kennedy's vision for Star Wars, and it was utterly eviscerated by everyone. The backlash was so bad that even Disney had to step in and promise not to make any more. Now, if you're spotting a theme here of Kennedy resurrecting old IPs and using them as a launchpad for diverse new girl boss replacements, then believe me, you're not alone.
Put a chick in it, make her gay!
She'd gambled some of the biggest
I forgot that the South Park character was based off of her.
In Hollywood history on the modern audience, and wow, did she lose big. To paraphrase Chris Gore, she took boy brands that everyone could enjoy and turned them into girl brands that nobody enjoyed.
That's right. Star Wars is for guys. It is. I'm sorry, but if you have a bunch of guys that are fighting for honor, tradition, and duty, and they're running around with laser beam swords cutting other people in half, your audience is men.
Men felt excluded and disrespected, and women felt patronized and pandered to. The modern audience had failed to show up, and the existing audience was abandoning ship. Kennedy's greatest gamble had failed, and inevitably it all finally caught up with her. For years there had been rumors of her retirement, false starts and conspiracy theories, but one thing was obvious: Kennedy wasn't going anywhere until she was damn well good and ready. And on January 15th, the day finally came. Kathleen Kennedy was stepping down as president of Lucasfilm.
It's really crazy to watch the Star Wars, like if you go back and you watch the prequel lightsaber fights, I really think that it is still like the Obi-Wan versus Anakin Skywalker in the end of the prequels. Everybody knew that it was building up to this. Everybody knew this was going to happen. From the moment that the first movie came out, everybody knew the conclusion is going to be him becoming Darth Vader. We all knew this. They even used it as like promotional material for like posters in the first movie. And it finally comes out like it was, and it's actually as good as people thought it was going to be. It is the best fight in the entire fucking series, in my opinion. I think it is. And then even before that, Yoda. The thing is that Yoda was supposed to be the super powerful Jedi Master, like way more powerful than Obi-Wan Kenobi, or even more powerful than Darth Vader, and like, or even Palpatine, and nobody knew what the fuck was going to happen. And then the moment that he fought Count Dooku, it was just as good as people thought it was going to be.
I've expected joyous celebrations at news like this, but the reaction was more like an exhausted acknowledgement from the fans. After all, what was really left to celebrate at this point? She was gone, sure, but she left behind her a studio in absolute shambles, all of its IPs drained of their goodwill and cultural reputation. There was nothing left to save from her because she'd nuked all of it. And now that the dust is settled and all is said...
Yeah, one more thing is that the guys that did the lightsaber choreography, they were so good at doing it for the prequels that they had to slow down because they thought the kids wouldn't be able to keep up. The kids wouldn't even know what the fuck is going on. So they had to slow down everything.
How will posterity judge Kathleen Kennedy? Will she be remembered as one of the greatest producers in Hollywood history, or the woman who oversaw the biggest act of brand destruction the industry's ever seen?
Probably both.
She'll certainly do her best to rewrite the narrative in her favor, that's for sure, like the lengthy interview with Deadline where she focused entirely on her successes and dismissed her failures and mistakes as someone else's fault. Mostly the small but vocal minority of toxic Star Wars fans who just couldn't see her brilliance.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, sure, whatever helps you sleep at night, Kathy.
Yeah, sure.
You know, for someone
Sure,
who's
lady.
all about breaking barriers and challenging female stereotypes, she's not exactly dispelling the myth that women are more averse to accountability, self-reflection, and owning their mistakes than Movie Bob is to a treadmill. Times have changed now, and paid shills and industry trades don't like the narrative on Hollywood legacies anymore. The internet does. And unfortunately for Kathleen Kennedy,
Forgot all about him.
the internet never forgets.
No, they don't.
Anyway,
Wow.
That's all I've got for today. Go away now.
What a fucking video. I didn't even know a lot of the stuff with like her doing Indiana Jones. I guess it makes sense because she was president of Lucasfilms and like they made it. But I just never really connected the two at all. And have you seen a Darth Maul trailer? Well, that's the thing, right? Is like, and I remember I was there fucking at like, I don't know, 4th grade or something like that. And like Darth Maul, because in the trailer, you know, he has the thing forward and then the fucking, the lights come out of both of them. And I was like, oh shit. Like, this is the coolest fucking thing I had ever seen. The only thing that I was unhappy about with the prequels is that they didn't show, I was hoping they could have showed a little bit of Darth Plagueis, right? I thought that would have been cool. But otherwise, I thought it was pretty much great. I did. And, you know, some of the, you know, the story beats, you know, people didn't really like it as much. But overall, I thought it was great.